going live. We'll act like we're live till we know we're live. We are live.
We're live.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Go Box Art Crates.
I'm
YouTube channel.
Art Crates. Our YouTube channel.
Yeah.
I'm Jenny.
I'm Paul.
And we're Go Box Art Crate.
Yep.
We do a subscription box and sell individual kits if you don't want to do a subscription. And we guide you through the projects that come in those kits via YouTube Live. And that's where we're at right now.
That's where we're at.
Happy Friday, everyone.
Happy Friday.
Want to welcome anyone who's new. Give a little shout out to all our Patreons. Thank you so much. If you do feel like you'd love to support us in that way, there are links below. Or they will be later. I don't know if they are now. They're
there.
Okay. Yeah. And I
Hi,
mean,
Kim.
as little as $1.
Hi, Kim.
Hi, Kim. Glad to see our regulars here.
Yeah.
So tell us what we're doing tonight.
So I'm going to switch over real quick. We are doing, what do we call it? The old tire swing?
The old tire swing.
So this is kind of based on an old painting we used to do in the studio. That was always fun. We kind of simplified it a little bit. Not so much that we simplified it, but we made it work better for a smaller canvas. Used to have a red barn in it, but I always felt like the red barn didn't really add much because it was just kind of like behind the tree over here. So we just kind of made it a little bit more focused on the tree and the tire. This particular painting I was really, we can't see our chat box.
Okay.
So just click on,
Yeah, I got it.
yeah. Really focused on doing
Mark.
something kind of more Van Gogh inspired as far as technique is concerned. Couple of things about tonight's broadcast. I did turn down one of the microphones a little bit so that I noticed that the last couple we were picking up the fan from our our video mixer, and I moved the mixer and I turned the mic down just a little bit, so let us know if it's too quiet. I can always turn it up a bit more. Changed our lighting around a little bit, and I've got a new toy. I can actually zoom in and zoom out much easier. I don't have to stand up. And
He has a little remote.
I've got a little remote control.
He had to show me a whole bunch of times.
She was
having fun with it.
She was so ignoring me.
I was watching it in a different
Yeah,
YouTube
because
video.
like we can zoom way in.
You can see the texture of that canvas. Check that out.
Where's my finger? Yeah,
You can see that Paul needs a manicure.
I do. Mani-pedi time. So there we go. Anyway, so we just decided, hey, we had done that the other day. Last time in Moonlit Sonata, we did the zoom in so we could see some finer detail. And I was like, I wonder if there's a remote for our camera. And sure enough, there was. And so I got
That's
that in.
going to make things so much better than us just lifting the canvas
Yeah.
up. Like,
He was like, oh.
look, and you're trying to center it.
Anyway, so this is what we're going to do tonight. The main thing on this is because it is kind of an impressionistic style painting, probably the hardest thing is just to be, that people are going to encounter, is just relaxing and letting the process work its way through. Don't try to manipulate things too much. Just kind of let them be, and we'll get through.
Everything on this looks pretty easy, except for probably the tree will be maybe some complications. Maybe not.
I mean, I think that's the nice thing about Impressionism as a whole is from a technique standpoint, it's very loose. So there's not a lot of precision work that's needed. It's just letting go of the idea that we have to be precise and detailed. That's probably the hardest thing for most people. So, with all that said, let's go ahead and move this out of the way. I'm actually going to prop this up over here where I can see it for reference. Let's talk about our colors. Same colors we used last week. We have yellow. We've got our phthalo red. I'll just call it red. We got white. We got cobalt blue this month. And then we have black. And the black we use very, very, very sparingly. We really only use it on the tree. So, with all that said, first thing we're going to do is we're going to mix up a little sky color, and we did the same thing we did last week. We ordered pizza, so
It's our date night too.
it's our date night too, and so we might have to jump up and
Well, I will.
Jenny might have to jump up and go receive pizza for us. So one of the things that I am not a big fan of in painting in general, and that's just using our regular blue for the sky. I haven't found a perfect blue that works for that yet. So what we're going to do is we're going to take mostly blue, a little touch of red, and then we're going to add just a little bit of white to it to just give it a little bit of opacity. So let's start with that. I'm going to take first just the tiniest little dot of red, just a little tiny bit, mostly blue, and we just want to shift that tone, maybe a little bit more red. We don't want it to look purple, we just want it to not be so intensely blue. Yeah, just a little bit of white. and a little bit more red. So again, it looks very similar. You can add a little bit more red if you want. You just don't want it to be purple. That's the main thing. Purple sky. Actually, what we're kind of doing is almost like creating ultramarine. And what we're going to start doing with this at first is we're just going to start, and I'm going to need to mix more as we go, but I'm going to start just by blotting color. And I'm going to be a little bit more concentrated up in these corners. And you might need to do this in batches. Like, we've got a very warm, humid day today, so things are going to dry quickly for us. But as I move away from the top of the canvas, I'm going to just do it less and less. I'm not going to rinse my brush. We're going to dive right into some white. I got a bouncy canvas.
I do too.
And I'm just using the white to move the blue around.
You know, I saw Bob Ross do this yesterday.
What? He's stealing my ideas?
Yes. Actually, although most of his was the giant brush that he uses, flicking it with his wrist back and forth.
But this is a great way to get color into a sky and make it feel like there's clouds and things going on without actually having to paint clouds. Now, the downside is, again, the paint can dry kind of fast. And so you kind of have to move quickly. But you can always paint over a dry area. And you can always bring more of your blue back in if you want to do it. But this is just a great way to lay down a foundation to work with. And just keep going. And don't worry about like, oh, I want a cloud here, I want a cloud there. We're not really worried about that. We're not painting clouds tonight. We're just putting colors in.
We're painting a kaleidoscope of blue and white.
Yeah, that just maybe suggests to us that maybe there's some wispiness going on.
Some storms. This reminds me of like, it's somewhere in the Midwest. There's a tornado building up somewhere.
We have had just the weirdest, like normally we're just outside of Portland, and normally in the summertime when we get hot weather, it's fairly dry, 40% humidity kind of level. And we've had, earlier this week, we had, one day it was 98 degrees and we had like 80% humidity and it was overcast.
It was horrible.
It was the weirdest. I'm not used to that. It's weird looking outside and seeing it cloudy and it
going outside and being like, wait, this doesn't feel right.
It's a sauna. Mm-hmm. So you can see, like, if I were to hold my original next to my new one, I've got a little bit more blue in the original. It doesn't matter. I can do more blue. I'll show you like what I meant by we can add more. Main thing we want to do, I'm going to get a little bit more blue just down in here, just to tint the white a little bit. We want to make sure that we're tinting the canvas just enough that we can see the difference between the canvas and what we're painting.
It seems like maybe we're lightening up as we get to the horizon.
Yep, we want to get this lighter and lighter as we get lower and lower.
There's our Friday night helicopter coming in.
Yeah. And you can, I'm just going to go down to within a couple inches of the bottom. And I can see, I don't know if you guys can see on this area, it is just ever so subtly different than the white. And that's all that matters. If you want to add a little bit of extra blue just to be kind of like a tracer for you, go for it. It won't hurt it. Now the nice thing about this painting at this point is we only really have our kind of blue color we made and white. I'm going to rinse my brush. If you guys have like a warmer, humid day, or dry day for that matter, just a warmer day, but I feel like it seems like paint dries faster in humid weather. I don't know why. It like works like a chamois or something. It's like it's moist, so it absorbs more. But rinse your brush more often because you'll feel it start to drag, and that kind of a drag. So I'm going to mix up just a touch more of my color. It doesn't matter if it's the same, exactly the same, just as long as it's close. I want to add a little bit more blue back up in here.
And this technique, I feel, works better if you hold your brush further back.
Yeah, exactly. It's
instead
far
of
back.
holding it like a pencil.
Yeah, or if you're working on an easel, you can hold it like this. I like doing that.
Hold it like what?
Like this.
Oh yeah.
Like a drumstick.
Uh-huh.
So I'm just.
There's the Abby's.
There's our pizza. So I'm just adding a little extra color in here just to make it more fun. But don't worry about blending all this stuff out. That's probably the biggest challenge people have when they're trying to do Impressionism, is our instinct is to blend. And we don't want to blend. We just want to let these colors happen and exist and react with each other. And we want this contrast to naturally occur. So I can zoom in real quick and show you guys that right now at this point, I'm going to zoom in just a little bit, you can see, there's nothing real specific going on with, oh, you put that right. You see, there's nothing real, there's no real specific shapes. I am just moving this around a little bit in here. It's just blots of color. So let's go back out a little bit. Oh boy, you guys, new toys. I get excited easily about this kind of thing.
I'm surprised you didn't move that closer to you.
So I had it over. So we also put a new overhead light in, and I did have it over here. But if you look on the screen, Jenny, there's, if I move this, there's glare here. When it was over here, it was right over.
Oh, okay.
And I didn't want it to glare into the camera. So we'll keep working on this stuff. We're still learning.
I think this is a sky you could easily add a tiny bit of black and have some gray in it if you really wanted it to look like a.
If you wanted to do that, I would have yes, you could, but the other thing you could do is just add just a tiny bit more of the phthalo red.
Make it more purple.
Yeah, and I just did that. If you wanted to add a little bit more, and you can see by adding a little bit, I kind of gotta make it show up a little bit all over, but that adds a nice stormy color without being dark and gloomy. Unless you want it to go dark and gloomy, and then you could add yellow and get that really evil run for cover because the thunderstorm is coming.
We had that last week. Oh, sorry, that scared me. I almost said a bad word. The door just slammed shut because of the wind, and I was not expecting it, and I think my heart leapt out of my chest.
That's what happens when you watch a lot of paranormal videos on YouTube.
Yeah, the ghost hunting videos.
So fight that urge to over mix and blend. Make sure you leave it nice and patchy as I'm over mixing and blending.
I think I will go prop that open with like a paint bottle.
Yeah.
It is nice to have it open.
Yeah, it is. So we got lucky yesterday was supposed to be 99. It only got up to like 92, and today we're back down to like 84. So I think that's what we're at. But in our warehouse, my warehouse I have where we do our filming, we don't have air conditioning. So
air conditioning is prop the door open.
Yeah, and so even though we're able to keep the doors and stuff closed when it's hot, it still gets up to mid-80s in here during the day, and then we try to cool it down in the mornings, but in the afternoon, when we come in to do the painting classes in the afternoons, it's a little hard to get it cooled down. So our next step we're basically up through step 2 at this point. For those of you who are not subscribers, when you get the monthly box, you do get printed instructions, and sometimes it can get a little wordy. I guess I typed a lot this last month.
Yeah, yours are always really wordy.
But we're going to move on to step 3, and basically, like, I use these guidelines as just a loose guide as far as the steps are concerned. I kind of like to not stick to it too rigidly because a lot of times I might go back and when I paint it differently the second time. So, I mean, not the painting, but the steps might go a little different than when we took the photos and stuff. So the next thing we're going to do is we're just going to kind of keep working with this area where I guess you guys can see it. We're good. I'm getting all flustered. The door scared me too. Just going to mix up kind of a nice little lavender color. You can add a little tiny bit of white to it. One of the things I noticed, Jenny, when I was working on the September box, and this is something I forget, and I should not because I know better. Most of the time you want to add a little bit of white to almost everything, almost all the colors. At least at first. You can always go over with a second. But most of the colors have a little bit of transparency or translucency to them. and the white kind of fights that for us and helps bring it back to being opaque. So I just mixed up this little lavender. You can go a little pinker if you want. Don't want to get too warm. Things in the distance tend to be a little cooler. Cooler in color, meaning leaning towards blue versus leaning towards reds and yellows. So you can have cooler yellows and stuff, or greens and stuff.
Do I need to refresh this?
I don't know. You can try. Go for it. See if is nobody talking to us? Is that the problem?
Just making sure.
Nobody's talking to us. Okay, that's fine. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to use our number 8 brush for this to start. And it's okay if your paint's still wet from the sky. I'm going to just kind of move up a little bit, and I'm just going to use the brush so that the bristles are like this, not like this. And just kind of scribble in. It's those trees. Somebody pointed them out on our Facebook group the other day that they had taken a picture and were like, hey, that does look like Paul's trees. Was that Joanna that pointed that out?
I think so.
Yeah. So one of the things, like, I'm getting a little bit, as I'm getting older, and maybe this is a good Zoom time.
Yeah.
It is.
You just want to use that remote.
I do. It's like having the clicker at home.
The clicker?
As my dad used to call it, the clicker.
Oh my gosh.
As I'm getting older and more patient, maybe, or maybe I think it's just because with this format we can be a little bit more precise with what we do versus when we're in the studios. I do tend to be a little bit more constrained with my brush strokes and less scribbly, but a little bit more thought going into it. But really all we're doing is we're going across and we're creating a horizon line that's jagged. And what I'm going to do with this is just kind of, I'm just using the number 8. This is maybe even a little more bold than it needs to be. I feel like it needs a little bit more red in there. There we go.
Hi, Donna. Glad you're happy to be watching. We're happy to be painting.
Yeah. Just gonna add a little bit more. And we're just going to work our way all the way across the canvas. And one of the things I try to avoid, so I kind of see starting to develop, I've kind of got some real even pattern here of these taller trees. And I want to make sure that I don't get that going too much. So I'm going to intentionally just kind of make it a little jagged, move across a little bit. You can do this with your biggest brush too. I just feel like this is a little bit more controlled. I think maybe I'm moving a little too slow.
I haven't even gotten to that point yet. I'm still in my clouds.
Yeah, we were dealing with picking up pizza. And boy, it is stuffy in here tonight. And I just kind of come through and kind of get these colors to just kind of blur out a bit. I know this is a lengthy process. I think that's the thing with this particular painting, is so much of it is just not a lot of like real specific, like you had said earlier, nothing really technically difficult. It's kind of just a lot of busy work. It's good brainless work. Like, it's the kind of thing you can just be like, oh, I can sit here and we can not think too much about what we're doing, because we're not trying to do anything but just suggest. Every once in a while you can take your biggest brush, just kind of...
Did you mix a little white in this too?
Yep. They're saying always add a little bit of white.
I missed that part.
Just a little bit of white helps.
I wonder how many times in my life I've painted these trees in this style. A lot.
Now, I like to pretend that we're doing it a little bit different, and it just makes me feel better.
Yours always turn out better than mine. I don't know what you do. You have a softer, or a...
I'm messy.
Yeah, yours are like more blurry. Mine are a little bit too precise, I think.
I don't know
Probably
how
have
that...
less
I mean,
paint
we're
on your
doing the
brush.
same thing. I don't know.
I think you have less paint on your brush.
Could be. This is the kind of thing you can just work along. If you're feeling adventurous, use both hands and 2 different brushes. Work.
Does this go all the way across?
Goes all the way across. Mine's maybe getting a little too straight across, so maybe I'll start to bump up a little bit here, give the suggestion that there's some rolling hills in the background or something. Kind of wanted to feel like we're more like in the, maybe more in the Midwest for a change instead of the Northwest.
Yeah. Next month we're in the Serengeti, just so you guys know.
We'll show you guys those in a bit. I actually really enjoyed that painting.
Yeah.
I think you guys already saw the one that Jenny made, right?
Yeah, I showed it last week for those who tuned in.
And I had actually started doing a mountain painting. And I was like, what am I doing? Jenny's got this great lion.
I told you to do a Serengeti desert, and then you came back and you're like, I think I'm going to do a Serengeti desert. I'm like, okay, he obviously didn't listen to me.
No, Kim, I don't have any water on my brush other than just from rinsing and drying. But
It's
I
like
don't.
damp dry.
Yeah, I don't. It's mostly. It's actually kind of dry brushing.
Some of these areas where the white is still wet, it makes the trees hazier. I like that because then you get the variance.
I like that a lot. That's actually, sometimes I really like to do that and refresh the white a little bit as you start going in. Boy, the paint's drying on my palette so fast.
You didn't mix quite enough.
Well, I mixed enough.
Mine's drying fast.
I just didn't mix as much as you did.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously, like, the more undulation, word of the day, that you put in this background, the more it's going to feel like you're more of a mountainy area, maybe more like Colorado or something like that. The flatter you do it, it's going to be a little bit more grain fields, maybe cornfields, Iowa, I don't know.
This reminds me a lot of my cousin's property in Grass Valley.
It does. Slide this over. Oh, I guess I missed this whole edge right along over here. But the main thing, if you guys look and see, I don't have like any horizontal lines, like where there's gaps. Everything's got a little bit of jaggedness to it. I do need to rinse my brush.
Kim asked if your touch is light. She says I tend to hold my brush too lightly. He usually does. Wouldn't you say your touch is pretty light?
Very light, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Light and messy. It can help too if you switch to the largest brush.
Yeah, you can do that
thin
too.
edge of that. I do that sometimes because you feel like you get a little more bang for your buck. And then you can always refine the tops of the trees with the number 8.
Yeah, I mean, what she means by refining the tops of the trees is just kind of coming in and just adding a couple little dabs. Like, we don't really want this to take over and become trees. I'm actually getting a little bit too big with mine. It's okay. I'm not going to worry about it. But yeah, just keep working across. As far as like holding the brush light, I've literally like dropped my brush before.
Where are you holding it? Show people where so he's holding it way back too.
Yeah. When we had our studio, we actually had long handle brushes, and they're about yay long. And I would hold it even further back. But I've actually, while teaching and doing a technique like this, I hold it so lightly that it actually is like, I've dropped it before while teaching.
That explains all the paint spots on the floor.
It was all me. Just want to hold it just tight enough that you can make it do what you need it to do.
Yeah, I have a tendency to hold mine more like a pencil a lot because I think so much of my life I spent doing more realistic detail work type of things like portraits.
And actually, if you think about like both of our backgrounds, you had a lot more refined art background before you started painting.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas I kind of like painting was.
Start.
I mean, I had taken some classes and stuff in middle school and high school, but not to the extent you had. But I was very much more just started with painting.
Mm-hmm.
Like even when I was a kid, I spent more time playing with the Crayola watercolors than I did with the crayons in terms of drawing and stuff. So this area over here, a lot of it's going to get covered by the other trees that come into play later. So don't feel like it's got to be perfect. None of this has to be perfect ever. In fact, I think the perfection lies in the imperfection. You want to let it be imperfect. I mean, that's what makes it a painting and not just some digital. Nothing wrong with digital art. Don't want to discourage anybody, but that is the differentiator between the two is what?
You know the Bob Ross video Greta and I were watching. Greta and I watched our daughter watched a YouTuber use a digital art program to recreate a Bob Ross painting, and he actually did a very good job. But the part, like what we're doing right now, where you're painting a large forest, he actually used in this program he was using on the Wacom tablet. It was a tree brush, and you just clicked it, and suddenly like all these trees appeared.
Oh yeah.
I'm like, wait a minute. Hey. That seems like, and he even admitted, he's like, yeah, this feels like cheating. This feels like cheating, but I'm still gonna do it. It was funny.
So the other thing, yeah, I know, it's like I've done that before on Illustrator and stuff. Next thing we're gonna do is I just brought a little bit more of this color. Just want to kind of brush this down into a little bit of a base here. And I'm just going to I'm not going to worry about rinsing my brush, but I'm just going to take a little bit of just plain black right along the bottom edge here. The black actually becomes like kind of like a primer for us, so that when we start painting...
That's scary.
Yeah, we're not going to go very far up, just like a brush width, but it becomes our primer that makes the other colors pop more, because some of these colors really... They stand out a lot stronger against black than they do over white or anything else. So the other thing is black gives us a nice uniform base without a lot of variation. So it's basically like a blank canvas. It's just a dark tint. So I'm just going to get some of that on. I'm going to kind of smudge it up. And you can add a little bit of our phthalo red to it, and that's actually the color we're going to use to kind of fade this stuff out a bit.
Isn't it crazy to think our next paintings that we design after we do this next Serengeti is going to be October?
Yeah.
So when we start getting into like the fall inspiration, you guys let me know if you want Halloween paintings. I know some people are really into it. It seems like based on different internet and YouTube searches I've been doing lately, people are really into Halloween like I am. And so I'm happy to play with that and do some Halloween paintings. I've got some ideas.
Cool. Cool.
Last year we did the Watcher, which was the little crow sitting on the pumpkin with the kind of haunted looking house in the background, and then you did the mushrooms with the moon.
It's crazy to think it's been a year.
Mm-hmm.
Moonshrooms.
Moonshrooms. That's right. That's what it was called. I just actually added that to our new listing.
I'm going to go ahead and just take a little bit of yellow here too. And just kind of brush it in. This is kind of a dangerous thing I'm doing right now. Because if you brush too much, you could start to lift the paint. So you want to be careful that you are adding to but not lifting. So very light touch is the key on that. And one of the things you can do with this, and this is what I like to do, is kind of just maybe take my brush and just kind of drag some of this color up into our trees a little bit. Just scrub. We're going to paint all over all of this area too. It really is a building process. There's really, again, like, I feel like I just keep repeating myself. It's one thing. Blah, blah, blah. No, this particular painting, it's about building, 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 and adding color, building up, building, building up, building up. That's where we kind of get this wonderful depth of color.
So it looks like this should be kind of a muddy color.
Yeah, it should be. It's just our base.
Mm-hmm. What about the top edge of this look like? You're just kind of blurring it up into the trees and letting your paintbrush run out?
Yep, you did big trees.
I guess I just can't escape the Pacific Northwest.
No, we're going to do bigger trees. I'll show what Jenny did. Here, let's see.
It looks like not so hot right now, but hold on.
You know, everybody's painting goes through that phase. You know that.
Yeah. I just want this one part to not dry real quick, and then I'll let you show it.
The other thing you can do too is, like, if you feel like the big brush is moving too much paint for you in your little transition, you can always take a smaller brush, like your number 8. And when I'm doing this, see, I'm starting to scrub a spot right there where the paint's starting to lift, so I need to move away from there. But when I'm starting to take some of this color up, I don't want to take it all the way out to the edges. I want to leave those edges that nice, soft lavender color. But you can kind of, woohoo, I got a little too yellow. You kind of just softly chatter it in.
Chatter it in.
Hey, bristle, bristle. Hey, bristle,
That's
bristle.
a verb now. Chatter it in. So like a painting verb.
Yeah. So that spot right there is going to be a problem because I scrubbed too much and I started to lift the paint. So I need to ignore that for a little bit.
Campfire smoke.
Mm-hmm. Could be. But before we get going too far, I want to leave that spot. I want to kind of start to come in down in here and to go back to my biggest brush. Actually, no, let's stick with our 8. That's the 4. There's my 8. Because from here on out, this is kind of just this is a great spot to be for our foundation. But from here on out is where we're really going to channel our inner Claude Monet and use smaller brush strokes that are a little bit more distinctive. And I'm going to start by just taking some of our phthalo red, and I'm just going to kind of create this kind of edge here. So I just blot the color in like that. I'm going to wipe my brush off. And I'm just going to dab blend. So dab blend means I'm just going to dab along. Let me zoom in. You guys can see it up close. I'm just going to take the brush and just dab into the wet paint and just lift it and push it up in. And it kind of fades it out.
Now it looks like Moody's like poppy fields.
Yeah.
Some poppy fields in France.
And then you can take, on the bottom below this, you can take some more of your yellow. And leave those little blotches. Let them be. They didn't do anything to you. Just leave them alone. Let them be there. They're trying to help you. But this phthalo red and the yellow make this wonderful, rich golden orange color. And you can see how rough that is. So let me zoom back out.
That looks pretty.
Zoom
Okay,
in.
it looks like there's just this pretty highlighting going on over there.
Yeah, it's just a natural, simple way of getting highlights. You can do a little bit more yellow.
I'm still refining my trees.
That's fine.
You said they were too big.
Nah.
I can't make them smaller, but I did notice my horizon line was a little, like I wanted it to climb up a little bit more on this one side. And I really sat back and looked at it.
So I just mixed a little bit of white with my yellow as well. Just kind of blot that into that transition. We'll keep working this, and this is like the whole trick of this painting is this process we're doing right now, where we are working smaller brush, more incremental, letting the colors mix together without blending.
And kind of feathering outward. You feather outward from a fresh paint glob.
Mm-hmm. But not by brushing, more by dabbing, yeah. Every time you do this, you can go back, you can add more yellow. Nice thing about this dabbing process, you're less likely to actually lift any of the paint.
I'm lifting paint.
If you're lifting, yeah.
But this area here was not totally dry.
Yeah, so I'm just going to go ahead, I'm going to cut in underneath where the, if I bring our original back, we've got this little ridge of trees here. I'm just going to kind of start to feather in along the bottom edge of where those might end up. Like, I've actually been tempted to do a whole, like one of this size canvas, like maybe for Go Box. I'm just gonna kind of work around here real quick around this edge here. I've been tempted to just do a whole painting just with like the number 8.
We'll let you do that.
I mean, I don't know if you remember, but there were a couple paintings we did in the studio that just used just the biggest brush.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually really like doing that. It's a fun way of exploring how brushes work for you and realizing that you don't need a whole ton of brushes. I mean, obviously we don't use a lot, but you can do a lot with just one brush.
His brush makes a lot of noise too, which you maybe can't hear all of that on the camera. He's scraping it in there pretty good. Pretty dry, actually. That's the sound of a dry brush. Except right now you've got a lot of paint on.
Yeah. And the nice thing is about, again, we just kind of keep talking about this aspect. By going back through here and getting a little bit more, you come back with more yellow, it's going to be a little bit, it's like a second coat. It's going to be a little bit more intense.
You did a painting of Rainier National Park that had this sort of field with the same technique.
Yeah.
I remember because I did that painting while you taught it up at the Hotel Vintage.
Yeah. But this is, like, honestly, this is like almost my favorite way to paint. One of them.
So what sort of ground is this? Is this a wheat field?
Something like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's what I figured it was, and I wrote that in the description. The product description on it.
Yeah, it's a wheat field. It could be any kind of grass field. Could be oats. I don't know.
No, just like in general. I mean, that's pretty. I mean that in a general way. It's like a field of dry grass. It's not like flowers or like the pink is just you're doing some color expression.
Yep.
Because it'd be really easy to turn these into flowers.
Oh, easy. Like, and if you want to, go for it.
Add some little tiny centers to some of these.
Add some height to them.
You can totally change this painting to be a spring painting.
It might be kind of hard. Well, yeah, it would have to be a field of yellow flowers. But one of the things I like to do too is always a nice. I'm gonna give my brush a quick little rinse, and you can always switch brushes. Like if you want to be a little bit more I don't want to use the word precise, but if you want to have a little bit more control, I'm just going to take a little bit more yellow and white. That might be too much white. And you can add just, I always like to add just a little hint of that brighter color a little further back. That might be a little bright, but...
So what's your thought process when you're adding that? What you're thinking?
So what I like to do is, it makes it feel, we're going to do more of this brighter color in the foreground. And if we do it kind of small and really far back in the horizon area, it adds the impression of depth. So it makes, by doing this little hint of color far back and kind of small, when we do the same thing up closer, our eye looks at it in terms of how we process things from perspective. Like when we're out in nature, you see a tree at a long ways away, you don't go, oh, that's a tiny tree, right? You think, oh, that's a long ways away. So by kind of echoing the shapes in the foreground, in the background, but on a smaller scale, it gives the idea that it's a little further away. Whereas if you just kind of do this blob, it's all right here in front of you.
Got it.
So, I'm trying to remember, I learned that from...
one of those TV painters.
Yeah, I think maybe Jerry Yarnell. I talk about him like I'm personal friends with him. I've never met him.
Jerry.
But just that little hint, and it kind of fades back out. It just adds more. Honestly, I think like a lot of times one of the things that we forget to do is add interest and add variety. We always just kind of look at everything, it's just this one blob, and it's like the more little undulation and stuff we add, the more little highlights, the more shadows. As long as we're not getting too worried about detailing it out, it just adds more interesting things to look at. So I feel like this area up here is dry enough that we can do our closer foreground trees. These trees go on in the sky. I don't know. If they're feeling a little too big like mine are, this is a great opportunity. I'll just kind of cover them up. I can let little hints of them still show, but I can add more foreground trees that are larger. And the color we're going to mix for this is everybody in the pool.
Everybody in the pool.
So I'll bring my palette over, just show you real quick. I'm going to start with blue and phthalo red, about equal parts. I'm going to mix up a little bit more, still using the number 8 brush. Now the trick on this one is I'm going to add yellow. And we just kind of get this not black but muddy color, and that's good. We don't want it to be pure black. If you want to go a little bit more yellow, it won't hurt. But it's just this dull color, and that's fine. I'm going to start kind of scrubbing in.
So what all did you add together to make
just the 3 primary colors.
Okay, so you have more blue than I do.
Yeah, you can always add a little bit more to suit your liking. I mean, it's like, and that's the one thing I really want to stress to people. Don't feel like you have to stick 100% to what we're doing. Make it your own painting. If you want it to be warmer and look more, soft and glowy, then add a little bit more of the pink and the phthalo red and the yellow. And I'm just going to kind of blot in this bottom edge here.
These chairs pop a lot.
If you bounce on it.
I wasn't bouncing, I was leaning. I didn't bounce.
So I'm just going to take this, and this technique I'm going to use on this is basically, I'm going to think of starting at the top. I'm just going to kind of dab. Little, almost Van Gogh-y. Just going to keep comparing myself to the masters all night.
Eventually you'll be there.
It makes me feel good. I think it's always amazing to think about those old guys, and none of them really considered themselves masters, really. Well, maybe Picasso did. That dude had an ego.
Did he?
Oh, yeah.
Dali probably did. I mean, Dali was one of a kind, that's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, you learn about his processes he used for coming up with ideas. It was like transcendentalism.
Mm-hmm.
If this color feels, I was going to say if it feels like it's not dark enough, you could add some black, but I don't know. I don't want it to feel dark. I don't want it to be this big dominant thing. I just want it to be a subtle little hint. I see all my trees are kind of leaning at the same angle, so I'm going to try to bring a couple in that.
You know which artist had a major ego? I read about this recently. I don't remember what it was I was reading. It's the one who, he went to like Fiji or Tahiti?
Oh, yeah.
What's his name? Is it Paul Gauguin?
Yeah.
Yes. And if it's him, he like married a 12-year-old tribe girl. And like gave her some STD. Because that's how he was.
Player's gonna play.
I was reading about it, maybe after we watched that one Van Gogh movie with Willem Dafoe. And it was like, whoa, this guy was a jerk.
Well, I think a lot of them were, honestly. I mean, they were, in a way, they were...
They were the Instagram celebrities.
They were, not to put
the
down...
movie stars.
They were influencers.
Yeah, they were not to put down influencers.
No, but they were. I mean, it's like, especially like, ones that traveled and stuff. I mean, it was like their way of showing off where they had been. And
Look where and we've talked about this on here before.
Yeah, that's how they
like
picked up on ladies.
The Hudson River painters.
Yeah,
look where I've been. Here's my camera roll. Oh no, it's just a giant canvas. But look this is what it looks like, and I saw it. And
I saw this with my
captured
own eyes, and they were like totally like.
I was there.
I beat my way through the forest with a machete. Machete. Until I came to an overrise overlooking the long-hidden valley that had not been seen by mankind in over 4,000 years. And from that vantage point, I created this wonderful painting. These are the exact colors. I did not embellish them at all. Not at all.
It looked exactly
like this. It looked just like this.
That's probably the way it was.
We lost many guides along the way. Killed many buffalo ourselves. They're like rats of the prairie. Alright. Now we're getting crazy.
Now you're going too far.
Nah, there's no such thing.
Yes, there is.
You know, guys, this is actually why I usually have a beverage. I don't have an adult beverage tonight, and usually I do it because it tones me down and keeps me more sane.
Yeah, we didn't do adult beverages tonight because I have a mild case of some kind of food poisoning.
Oof, not good.
Yeah, and so I am thinking best not to dehydrate.
So again, I'm just kind of adding more of this color and color and color. Wait, what are we in this? We're in 48 minutes into this painting. And it's coming together pretty quick.
Come together right now.
We can just kind of work more into this middle area again. Just bring some more of this yellow in.
Now that my ground is dried a bit.
Yeah. Like, realistically, I mean, you could, depending on your level of personal satisfaction, like, a lot of times, when I get to a stage, like, just about, once I finish coming across here, I would look at this painting and go, okay, this is a finished painting. Like, to me, a lot of times...
I'm gonna go show all the people. Look where I've been.
Look where I've been. Right before I did
finished.
This brush stroke. As soon as I put my signature on a pride of lions with a rogue tiger.
I had to fight it off.
attacked me and I stabbed them in the eye with my brush.
Those guys are like cursing us from the afterlife right now. Garcio, how dare you call me out?
My secrets have been unveiled. Oh gosh, weird.
And posted on the internet.
So here I'm doing my little echo color.
Echo color.
So it's similar to what we have up in here.
Nobody does glowy fields like Paul.
Oh, thank you.
It's true though. You do a very good job with glowy fields.
Every time I say glowy, I think of that.
So
Sparkly, shimmery.
Sparkly glowy. What was that?
Sparkly.
Was that
Jar Jar Binks on Adult
Robot
Swim.
Chicken.
Robot Chicken. Look at me, honey. Sparkly glowy. So it's really important when we do this is to leave this little gap here. And what it does is it encourages this notion that this goes further back. There's a little bump here or something like that. It's all tricking the eye.
My gap disappeared.
Just going to keep... we'll do this. What we'll do in a little bit is towards the end, we will actually come in and just add some little suggestions of some tufts of grass. You don't have to. I think it adds a nice bit. Let's see. I'm going to look at the original. I'm going to add a little bit more of this pink down in here. Phthalo red. I call it pink. It looks pink to me. But if you want to call it phthalo red, do it. That's the name. And if it gets too like red feeling, you can always add a little bit of blue.
I found too, this technique works if you hardly have any water on your brush, because there's been some times when I've had too much water on the brush and it just doesn't do the same thing.
Well, what it does is it causes the paint to flow.
Yeah.
And you don't want the
flow.
You don't want the paint to flow. You want it to blot.
Tell me about this blue down here. What is this?
So I'm just adding a little bit of depth and it's actually, I should have done it in the original, because the way these colors all interact right there is actually really amazing. It's just a little bit of the blue blotted into the existing red. Creates this wonderful
purple.
Yeah, but it's kind of like the way the purple then kind of butts up against the orange. Those are they're what do they call them? Like, they're not complementary. They're like tertiary.
Oh my gosh, there's a term I have not heard in a while.
Yeah.
I'm bringing out the art snob term. Tertiary colors. I painted this landscape in the wild in
tertiary colors. But the other thing is like, we did it in one of the other paintings not too long ago, where we used a little bit of the Bahama blue or something, a lighter color.
My canvas is so weirdly tweaked.
Like, here's that little spot I was talking about that I said was going to be a problem. The paint still doesn't want to stick on there, so...
It wants to be there.
Just live with it. It's light shining through. But I'm trying to remember what painting it was that we added a little bit of turquoise or something in the deep shadow. It's kind of a technique that I noticed that Monet used, is using a lighter than you would expect color in a darker area, and it really just kind of makes that area pop a little bit, and I'm really digging how this blue is doing that. That's good. That's good. Good. So I'm gonna use my fun toy. I'm gonna zoom in.
Let's look at Paul's mess up close, because it really is messy up close, and that's not a insult.
No, I don't take it as an insult. But one of the
It's
things...
also a hot mess.
It's a hot mess. It's so hot.
Yes, Donna, I love these colors too. I think they're fun to work with.
But one of the things that's... Yeah, I do too. They're great complements to each other. I think it's really nice to come into these areas. And I think this right here that I'm doing is like really the part that gets lost in person. Mm-hmm. And if you don't zoom in, it's just adding some little...
Look at that. Zoom in.
It's so wonderful. Where has this been? Why did we not think of this before?
Yeah, that's on you.
It is totally on me. But these little bits...
What are these little bits?
Nothing.
Okay.
It's just textural variation, and it's what keeps it from being blendy and softy. So zoom back out.
Blendy and softy can be reserved for other paintings.
Yeah, for sure. Time and place. So I honestly, I personally feel like a lot of times, like again, I said when we get done with this bottom portion, I will feel like this painting could be considered finished. And I do feel like it could be considered finished. Like I would be very happy with this as it is. I am going to now let's take our number 4. And I'm going to take a little bit of just some yellow. Again, I switched to the number 4. Again, I'm just adding texture. I'm not doing brush strokes. It's just kind of letting the brush or the paint slide off the brush onto the canvas. Oh, let's see where we're at in our instructions. I think that's a good spot to transition. Yeah, oh wow. So we're ready for our tree. It's tree 30.
6:30 is tree 30.
It is. So those of you who have painted with me before, I know most of you who are here live have. Some of you may not. I know a lot of people, when they teach trees or they paint trees, they paint the trunk first. And I really don't like painting a trunk first. And the reason is, I think what happens is when we paint a trunk first, we get too focused on where the trunk is and we start to lose focus on the overall shape of the tree. And so what we're painting is an old oak tree, really. And because I always think like an old oak tree in a wheat field is kind of iconic. Mm-hmm. It just doesn't matter. I think every state's got one somewhere. But it's this shape of the canopy that's more important to the finished painting than the trunk. And so we want to get this right. And what happens is a lot of times is we paint the trunk first, people kind of just go around the edges of it. They don't think about the mass in the middle. So I like to start with, we're going to use our number 8 to do this. But we're just going to create this canopy. And to start off with, I don't want to get super bold. So I'm going to take mostly yellow, little touch of red, little touch of blue, a little bit more blue, a little bit more red, just a little more blue. Just kind of making a little bit of a greenish color. I want a little bit more yellow, a little bit more red. There we go. Kind of a split pea kind of green a little bit.
So the red is what tones it down.
Yeah. And so I'm just going to think about like, okay, this is going to start right up there at the top. And I don't want quite that much paint. So I'm going to wipe some off. And I'm just going to start thinking about this overall kind of triangular shape if you think about it. You know, let some of the blue show through because trees are 90% air.
That's a scary little way of doing the tree, but
yeah.
I suppose if you think of it like a green cloud.
Don't even think about it as a green cloud. Just think about it as the top of the tree.
Then you start wanting to make things. So next month you guys get acacia trees and baobab trees.
Ooh, the baobabs are like the easiest trees ever.
They're neat looking.
The acacia tree is actually very similar to this tree, honestly.
Yeah. Baobab trees are the ones that have super thick trunks, and they're really, like, there's a long space before you reach the branches, and they store a bunch of water in their trunks in the Serengeti.
Yeah, so I'm just kind of thinking of all these little clusters of where the big branches come up, and then there are clusters of foliage. I like to use this lighter color to start with because it's easier to make adjustments if we need to. And we're going to have this one cluster that's kind of a little bit more off to the right. That's going to be supported by our branch that has the tire swing on it. So I've gone across and basically I've created our basic outline shape. I need to mix a little bit more paint. Is that you?
Yeah.
I'm trying to figure out what that was. I kept hearing noises all day today. I was like, what is that loud rumbling noise? And we were driving home. We had 4 fighter jets flew over the top, and Hayden's like, oh, I bet they're from the air show that's out in McMinnville, which is just a few miles.
Oh, yeah. We went to that one.
No, it was like fighter jets.
Oh, interesting.
Like, I didn't know they had that big of an air show out at McMinnville.
When we went years ago, it wasn't that
That was
big.
like a cruise-in for people with planes, though. So I've got a lot of this going on. And what we can do is we can add a little bit more blue and red to our mix to kind of take it a little bit more towards the tone we used over here. And you can kind of come in and just add a little bit more. Real blotty. Not quite going out to the edges, not covering all the blue. It's kind of the same process we did down below in our field, just different color. Again, this painting is really one that you can kind of just mentally check out and just let the brush do the work. Jenny, do you have restless leg syndrome tonight?
My legs just dangle, like they don't reach.
Oh.
So
I could, I think I have
No,
your
it's
chair.
fine.
I have your chair, which has more the foot
I
supports.
have short leg syndrome is what I have.
Yeah. Jenny and I have a fairly distinct difference in height. So.
Yeah. Everybody in my family got height except for my mom and I.
So now we've kind of got these blotches. I'll zoom back out. We will continue to work on these. It doesn't feel like a whole lot right now. But now is a good time we can actually try to put our, but we can actually put our trunk in and make it work. And we are just going to use black for this. Just pure black.
You could make brown because you got all the colors.
Yeah, but I think sometimes we try too hard to be like, oh, it's a tree, it has to have brown bark. And I think that's one of the things I see in painting a lot is trying to use preconceived, what's the word I'm looking for?
Color expectations.
No. I was thinking it's like
Preconceived ideals?
like generic ideas. You know, it's like, oh, well, trees are green, so we have to paint them green. The sky is blue, so we have to paint it blue. You know, things like that. And
which is exactly what we did.
yeah, but there are ways to do it without it being so like, oh, this is green. You know, trees are green with brown bark. You know, it doesn't always look the way it should on a painting, for example. I did mix, by the way. I am mixing blue, pink, and black about equal parts. Just so it's not so intensely black. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at this. I'm going to get, okay, oak trees kind of typically have like one main trunk that kind of splits about a third of the way up into two trunks, and then it has a couple other branches. So I'm just going to start, I've kind of got this main guy up here. I'm just going to add a little dab. Give that. I'm gonna work small, guys.
Just always add on.
You can always add on, and I feel like it's kind of got another trunk. It kind of comes up here. Got this branch that's over here, so maybe this is kind of off there like that, and the branches are, at first this is going to look a little awkward. That's okay. It won't. It'll be fine. Maybe switch to your number 4 or even your smallest brush if you want to. Just add some suggestions of some other branches, but don't get too branch happy. That's kind of a key on this. Is it's really easy to get really branch happy. This tree kind of looks a little bit of a hot mess right now, but we'll fix it. Now for our tree tire swing, I want to make sure that this kind of comes over and has a nice close to horizontal kind of section. Where that can tie on. That's about all I'm going to do branch wise. And take some more of this dark color. I'm kind of thinking that maybe the light's coming from over on the right hand side of the canvas. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But I am thinking of having one area where it's coming from. Just going to add a little bit more of this even darker color. One of the things you want to look for at this point, and this is something I kind of see in my painting, is like these tufts are all very uniform. So I want to try to get rid of that uniformity. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm just going to kind of make these two a little bit more connected feeling. We got more to do on this, so right now it's too green feeling. Should I talk about the next month's paintings?
Sure.
Real quick? While people get caught up. So next month, I think we showed Jenny's last week. We'll show it again. And there we go. So there's Jenny's tiger, very striking eyes. It's looking
Tiger, that's
lion. Staring into your soul.
It's the glamour king of the jungle.
Yep. And then I decided, let's give him somewhere to sleep. So here's our Serengeti painting.
There's the baobab trees.
Yeah. Put this down here and zoom back in a little bit. And so you can see the tree is actually very similar. It's just thinner and wispier than the tree we're working on tonight. But you will notice.
Yes, it reminds me of the elephant too. They can go together.
You'll notice right there, there's our lion. And it's twilight, so the lion sleeps at night.
In the jungle.
Yeah. We didn't name it that. I don't know if we're going to name it that or not, but I think these two paintings are a nice, this is a good warm-up for this one.
The lion's really easy too. I looked up the easiest way to sketch a lion's face when teaching it, and I know it will come together really good.
Cool. All right, so our next step, I'm going to switch back to my number 8. We're going to keep working on this tree. Again, it's too green for now. I want to mix together. Actually, before we do that, let's I'm gonna no, let's do that towards more closer to the end. I'm gonna mix together a little bit of yellow. My brush is kind of dirty, so it doesn't really matter. A little bit of dirty paint water never hurt a painting. A little yellow, little bit of red, more yellow. Too much red in there. A little bit's okay. And this just kind of sits in. I'm starting kind of on the outer top right, kind of. And it's okay to let a little bit of that green on the edges show. And it's actually okay to let the little bit of green show all over. But this is where this tree starts to have a full feeling. It feels like it's got some substance to it. I guess I was almost feeling like a little bit like fall when I did this painting. Do these highlights right on this one.
Last days of summer.
Yeah, we did. Didn't we have one called that?
No.
I don't think so.
I think we were laughing about the summer vibes ornaments, and I think I called them like the last chance summer dance.
So that used to be like, growing up in Portland, there was a radio station called Z100. Was it Z100 that did it?
I think so.
And they'd have like a little music festival every end of August that was called Last Chance Summer Dance or something like that. It was the top Billboard 150 channel that played all the pop stuff. And I don't think I never went to it. Did you ever go to it?
No. No way. My parents did not make a habit of going into Portland too much.
Oh, I wouldn't have thought that would be something you and your parents would have done. I would have thought maybe you and some friends.
We were kind of more into like the alt music.
I mean, that's why I never went. I was
No Metallica there.
Metallica gonna be there? Oh no. Belle Biv DeVoe?
What color are you putting? Did you mix orange and yellow together to put like this golden color you're putting in here? Or is
It's just yellow and red.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I meant. Did you make orange with yellow and red?
Yeah. And then I just added a little bit of white to just add some extra little pop of highlight. I feel like this area right in here is getting a little too soft and muddy feeling. That's okay, because there's easy ways to fix that in this painting. What brush am I using? That's the 8. Okay. Because you can always come back with a little of just some pure black.
My tree kind of looks like it might be on fire.
This tree is on fire. Actually, that looks good, Jenny. I like that.
Happy little accident. Bit too much orange, that's all.
No,
but I could always
think
go
it's
back
fine.
and put green back over it if I wanted to. What is that noise?
Don't know. So I kept going outside. I was like, what is that loud rumbling noise? And I kept going out and I didn't see it. I thought, well, then there's new neighbors working on the bus barn lot for the school. So I thought maybe they're rolling gravel or something. No, nobody over there.
I thought they didn't get their contract renewed.
No, there's the company that got the contract
they're new. Okay,
is taking over the space.
Got it. Okay.
So now I'm just taking a little bit of just some pure black and adding some little bits and pieces of some shadows. We'll do some highlights on there too. Okay, this area over here is kind of bothering me a bit, so we're going to address that.
My watch is telling me, you can still do it. You've been laying around all day. You can still do it.
Hit your steps? Is that what it's trying to
Yeah.
say?
There's still a chance. Just go for like a 10-mile run. There you go. That's all. Just a 10-mile run. Such positive thinking by Apple.
Yeah. Whatever, you guys. I'm just playing around with some colors here. It's fine.
My tree shape is very much like Bob Ross's hair.
Alright, I'm not going to do any more with that. That's getting too muddy. One thing you can do is, like, mine feels a little bit uniformly like cotton balls. So
It's a sculpted tree.
yeah, well, you can mix up a little bit of our color we used initially to form the tree. Maybe a little bit more yellow and a tiny bit of white. And you can kind of come through and just add some texture. And what I mean by texture is I'm just adding a little bit of some flyaway leaves and things. If you take a little bit of this color and bring it back down in, you can just keep working it. You know, you can keep adding highlights, you can keep adding shadows, you can add texture. It's really hard to take away shapes. But don't be afraid of it being jagged. I think people get a little bit wanting everything to be soft and round and cuddly. And it's okay. Branches grow in different directions. They break. That's looking better. I like that with a little bit more texture. And again, what I'll do is I'm just kind of starting back from the beginning a little bit adding in some extra texture because it was missing.
Steal some of your yellow.
Just along the edge. And then I want to make sure that I don't forget the highlights. Wasn't there like a magazine when we were kids called like Highlights Magazine?
Yeah, I love that. My orthodontist office had it, and I would always read it.
You know, I think I have older sisters, and I think at some point in time one of them had like a subscription to it because it was kind of a big thing, I think, in the 70s.
Mm-hmm.
And we had like a whole closet full of them.
Jeff had a subscription to a magazine called Boys Life, and I think it was for like boys who are in Cub Scouts.
Mm-hmm.
And I would read them all, and I learned all about like how to survive an avalanche. That's some useful info.
I had Ranger Rick.
Oh yeah, Ranger Rick. I remember those. You know, the Highlights is still around, I think. No, Highlights. It's not Highlights. I was thinking of something different. Greta and Hayden, my parents got them for a couple years, subscriptions to the National Geographic for kids.
Oh yeah, I remember.
And finally, Greta had to tell Grandma, I think I'm too old for these now. You can stop the subscription. Grandma's like, no, you don't grow older. You won't.
Inevitably, it always happens. So, I'm getting too highlighty on this.
Your tree is very nice.
It's getting messy. Alright, so before we get going too far, how are we looking on time? We're an hour and a half. Okay, or hour and 20 minutes. We're doing good. We don't have very much left to do. Really, all we have is just our tire swing, a couple highlights on the tree, and I was actually really proud of myself of thinking of putting the worn patch underneath the tire swing, because obviously
he talked to me about that, how proud he was of himself.
Yeah, I was really proud of myself for thinking of it, because it'd be something that would be so easy to overlook.
Aw, that's sweet, Kim. I didn't even know there's a High Five magazine that's highlights for toddlers.
Oh, that's cool.
She gets it for her granddaughter. That's sweet.
That's really cool. Alright, so I'm gonna put my tire swing. I'm just gonna find a spot where it's gonna be, and I put my tire swing in the original one. I feel like it's a little too high off the ground area, but I'm just gonna kind of come straight down here.
What is that outside?
It's a big truck.
Lost?
No, I think it looks like it's a fuel truck for the helicopters.
Yeah, we have a helipad out here. We're gonna go ride home in our helicopter on the way home.
So it's kind of interesting is we literally are like 100 yards away from where there's a helicopter training place, and I think they do work on helicopters as well. But we're about 100 yards, or my office here where we're sitting is about 100 yards away from that. But also in the mornings on the weekends, and sometimes during the week too, they have hot air balloon tours that take off from that same spot. So I often, when I get into work about 8, they're just getting back from their hot air balloon trip, because they go really early in the morning.
The daily air show.
Yeah. We get like a lot of like the guys that fly like the firefighting helicopters come here and practice maneuvers and stuff right over the airstrip, and it's kind of cool. I've seen some pretty cool maneuvers. I'm just doing a little rope.
Did you ever go on a tire swing though?
Me?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Did you?
Yep. Oh yeah, my relatives, some of them had property always, but the most memorable thing was it's actually a rope swing in a barn, and I remember I was in 7th grade, and I swung on this rope to to go across all the hay and land in the barn. And when I landed and stood up, I realized that my little 1980s light colored denim skirt that I love had ripped from the bottom all the way up to the waist. I can't remember if it was in the front or the back. I think it was in the front. It's just like, where can I hide?
Oh no!
And it was just like a bunch of us kids. They were like, kids I didn't even know. Some of my cousins' friends.
All right, so we're gonna mix up our dirt color, and our dirt color really is just yellow and phthalo red, a little touch of white. I don't want it to be too light, and just gonna start really pretty close to our little tire swing here.
Yellow.
Yeah, it needs a little tiny bit of blue in there too, because I want it to be. Maybe now I got too much. Too much blue. There we go. It wants to feel kind of dark. No.
Having a hard time mixing that color, huh?
No.
Was this, you put a little blue in there too?
Just a tiny dab. There we go. It's like use silly putty color.
Oh, I remember that on the instructions, because I had, when you wrote him and sent him to Eric and he sent him back to me.
You're like, what is he talking about?
No, you spelled it P-U-D-D-Y, and I was like, does he mean muddy? And so I think I changed him to muddy. And then I see now, but I don't know, silly putty is not really this color.
It is once it gets dirty.
Once you use it to pick up all the newsprint.
Yeah, once you've transferred Dilbert a few times.
Dilbert.
Andy Cap.
Oh my gosh, I forgot about Andy.
So just adding that little jaggedy little spot.
I've got a tree root kind of in the way.
Your tree's got some roots.
It does. Yeah, I need a pretty epic root system.
So I'm going to also create myself a little shadow color, and just use equal parts red and blue. Smallest brush, and kind of just sketch in on this edge. Maybe back up here. I kind of got that a little close to my tire.
What color did you mix for that? Oh, red and blue.
Just
Purple.
red and blue, yeah. You don't want to do it on the other side, because that's kind of gets into some weird territory. Let's grab our number 4. These last little details are going quick. I know it. Number 4, little tiny bit of white. I think it rained yesterday in this painting, so I'm just gonna put in some little puddles. In this little area, because that's where the kids' feet drag. It's got a little bit of standing water in there. That's good. I don't want to do too much more. Actually, I'm liking how this one I'm painting tonight is actually, I like it better than the original. I like the tree in the original a little better. But it's always going to be the case when we paint. There's always going to be things you like about the original one, things we like about the new one, etc., etc. etc, etc. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to add some highlights to our tree. And so I'm going to use my number 4 and that red and blue color that we mixed up, that lavender. I'm just going to add some white to it. Yeah, you can add a little touch of black, just a tiny dab, just to keep it from being too purple.
You can really smell the whatever that smell is out there that smells like cow poop.
What is cow poop?
What is nearby that's...
There's that organic dairy farm, Horizon.
Oh, really? That's quite far away, isn't it?
It's only like 2 miles south.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Wow, you can still get the smell in here, though.
Yeah.
Woo, boy. That's intense.
Now, to be fair, Jenny's got some impressive sniffers. She can smell a flea fart in China. I don't smell it at all, but she notices it.
I kept smelling it and I thought it was you.
No. It could be. Could be.
No, I smelled it as soon as we got out of the car. But it hadn't really traveled in here until in the last 40 minutes or so.
So I'm just mixing up, and it really equates to being a light gray color. And I'm just adding some highlights on our bark. I'm going to be kind of sketchy.
I'm just going to use your color.
Go for it. Mm-hmm. By all means.
Be scratchy sketchy here.
Yeah, really scratchy sketchy, because oak trees have pretty rough bark.
They're very scratchy sketchy. I've got a funky tree root that I tried to cover and it failed miserably.
Nice thing is, if you get too carried away, you can always come back with a little black.
I got too carried away. Actually, I couldn't really see very well, but I had put on way too many highlights.
Ah. You could always even, like...
Don't you feel like we should put this color on the inside edge of the tire?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, in fact, there it is on the original.
Oh, okay.
So you just take your smallest brush, same color, and just add a little.
Mine's like a bicycle tire.
Well, that's easy to fix. Just,
yeah.
It's actually an old Model T tire. Jenny.
That's what it is.
Mine's a little on the small side too.
No, I'm gonna turn it into like those tires they
Sunday
Yeah,
at the Nova
NASCAR tires.
Monster trucks.
Oh yeah. No,
We'll sell you the whole seat, but you'll only need the edge.
I was thinking that. Wow, that's pretty good. I was thinking that this was like those tires they put on the funny cars that they keep them kind of purposely flat until they take off.
The slicks.
Yes, the slicks. That's what it is. It's a racing slick.
Yeah.
You must have heard a lot of those commercials.
We watched a lot of racing on TV on the weekends. My dad used to be a race car driver when he was younger, so...
Rusty was a race car driver.
He was. Alright, so the last little step we got here is to, I'm just adding a little bit more yellow. I just felt like mine needed a little pop, extra pop. It won't hurt it. That color is a little, anyway. Alright, the last little step we're going to do is I'm going to take my biggest brush, I'm going to rinse it, going to dry it. I'm going to dry it really good because I don't want a lot of paint on it, or I want it to be very dry. I'm going to take a little bit of my white. I'm going to slide this over here. I'm going to show you guys. I'm just going to do it right here. Little white, little yellow, dab them together. Mustard and mayo. And I want my brush to kind of get flared out a bit. So I'm just going to kind of tap it, and all we're going to do is we're just going to kind of come through. It's a little bit too much white. That's all right. Yeah, it's a little too much white. I hear a helicopter.
Oh, doing some grass.
Yeah. And just kind of giving it a little flick.
There's our ride, Paul. We're going to take our Abby's pizza.
Jeeves, Land it on the helipad on the roof, please.
Jeez, you're a little early. we said when we were done with the painting video.
I'm Abe Froman, the Sausage King of Chicago. Kudos if anybody knows what that's from.
Yes, big kudos, big time kudos.
I'm sure you all know what that was from, too.
These kind of could look like little flames.
Boy, are you a pyromaniac? I mean, you're obsessed with flames tonight.
I feel like a lot of the things I did looked almost like flames. Like I tried to cover this tree root with some orangey kind of wheat-like grasses, like with the little brush, and I had to cover that because it's like, oh, it's on fire.
Now, if you get this going and it's too...
On fire?
Too white.
Oh, I forgot to splay my brush out, too. I forgot to wreck the brush like you do.
Just come back in with just some pure yellow.
All it's missing is a little barn in the distance.
I don't like teaching buildings.
Yeah.
And it's not that I'm okay with painting them myself, but I feel like buildings are one of those things that because it's a rigid structure, people tend to kind of hyperfixate on.
Well, you need to watch some Bob Ross videos. You know, he puts that little serial killer shack in all space.
The stabbing cabin.
He really does. Like so many of his have that little cabin. Well, like the one. Okay, so our holiday barn painting that's on the birch. It's just the front view, so it's kept very simple. But then you can detail like the barn wood, so you get the effect of it not looking too simplified, I guess.
Now I'm not going up very far with this because I don't want to get detail back in here. So we do this a lot in the next painting, next month, the Serengeti painting, by the way.
Oh yeah, I see it has some dead grasses on there.
I mean, if you've ever seen the Serengeti.
Did you look at photos?
Oh, absolutely.
I sent you that website that had all the trees that grow there.
I did not use that.
You should have. There's some epic pictures.
And Jenny was right. I think we could put some flowers in here. So, foxgloves or something.
My stomach is sounding like those creatures on the Quiet Place movie we watched the other day.
If you guys like horror movies or thrillers, we watched one called A Quiet Place.
Yeah, we were so far behind the game. It came out in 2018 and it got a lot of hype. We were just like, we'll watch it someday. We'll watch it someday.
It was really good.
Several years later, we watched it.
I'm not much of a horror movie person myself. Long story.
It wasn't like super horror. It was like it's
a thriller.
PG-13, so it's not like didn't have a lot of like really any gore or anything like it. It's definitely a psychological like, wow, what would you do if you were in this situation? Makes you think. This completely like off the wall situation.
So I'm showing you guys how I'm painting these flowers down here in the foreground. I am using the other end of my brush with just some pink.
Oh. What brush is that?
The smallest brush.
Huh, it looks so big in the video. In the zoom in.
Yeah. Just add a little bit of that. And I think I'm going to do that on the other side. I'm going to leave it zoomed in. And move the canvas over here. Yeah, I think that'll be a good spot. So just kind of scratch this color in a bit. Bonus points.
What kind of flowers are those?
Doesn't matter.
Do you think they're like lupins?
Like fireweed.
Like tall.
Kind of remind me like fireweed.
Red hot pokers.
Could be. You again with the fire reference.
You're the one who said fireweed.
That's true.
Well, I'm gonna do my flowers a little bit different than yours.
You don't have to do flowers. Just.
But I want to.
I'm just saying. for our students. They don't have to if they don't want to.
Oh, hello. Fly.
Shoe fly, don't bother me. Alright. Anyway, so I'm going to call that done. There's nothing else in this painting.
To sign it.
Last thing to do is to sign it. You know what? Since I put these flowers over here in the phthalo red, I'm going to hide my signature with a little phthalo red right here in the corner. I always think I forget to sign them when we do these. There we go. Just hidden down there, a little subtle.
not scary. No scary movies for this chicken. It took me a long time to build that up, and now like my daughter, that's like her favorite genre. So I'm like, okay, I have to like build myself up to being okay with.
She called me a soy boy the other day because I was like, I'm not really into horror movies. She's like, all right, soy boy.
Oh my gosh, Greta. That's funny.
Well, my little story is that when I was teenager-ish, I was plagued by pretty gruesome nightmares. I've described some of them to you
It's
before.
because of those fantasy books you used to read.
I don't
Paul.
think it has anything to do with that. I don't
You
know
told
what
me
it
at the
was.
time it was from those.
I did not. You're making that up,
That's
and you're
not
trying
true.
to make it sound like you know what's going on in my brain. No, but I had some pretty vividly graphic. From the time I was like kindergarten on up. It was before I was even reading. So then horror movies just were not a good thing because it was like I've already witnessed horror in my own brain.
I mean, most of them don't really leave you with the feel good
Nope.
thing in the end.
All right. So I'm gonna slide mine over. Let's see how Jenny did with hers. I like yours, Jenny.
All right. I have some issues.
It's all right.
There's some issues I see on it that I'd like
It's
to
all right.
pound out. Like, I don't really like my area under the tire swing.
Oh,
It kind of just gets lost.
it looks kind of like a path more. Like mine does too, though.
It gets a little lost. I like my tree, though. Yours is a lot softer. I have definitely harsher leaves.
So yours actually, this back area actually captures what I was going for better than mine did. See how that little bright pop in the background kind of pulls the eye back towards the middle, makes it feel like it's further away.
I feel like based on the highlighting on the tree, that a shadow over here probably needed to be done.
Oh yeah, I mean we could do that real quick.
I already put our paint away. Sorry.
So if you wanted to do that, you could just mix up one of your darker tones and just
Pull it off.
That would
to
look
the
good.
side.
So, where's our mouse? Misty the Mousy.
We'll get us back. That was fun. You probably want to. Yeah. Okay. It's which one of these is by click?
The top one. Yeah, we're back.
There we are.
That was fun. I was doing it like a transition fade just so that you guys would. It was just killing time. But anyway, guys, thanks for joining us tonight.
Yeah.
I had a good time painting that one. Tell us what you thought. I mean,
Yep.
like, drop a comment down in the section. Let us know if you painted along, if you thought this one was difficult or
yeah,
easy.
or maybe like what was the hardest part or what was the easiest part.
What did you think was the hardest part, Jenny?
I would say
Fighting the urge to detail the heck out of it.
yeah, that is actually that's it.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
I felt like my field turned out nice. I like the way it turned out. My background trees, I would soften them a little bit more, so they're not so like they should be a lighter faded
Well,
out
if we look
color.
at the original painting, I'll hold this up real quick.
Oh yeah.
The
You gave
background
us-
trees are almost not even.
With this one that you taught, you gave us
Yeah.
big ass trees. Look at that.
Yeah, so I don't know what happened. It happens. But anyway, it's however you do it, it's fine. It doesn't matter because it's not. I don't know. I always think a lot of times people get too worried about
Good night,
making
Ken.
it
Thank you.
too perfect.
And Mark.
Good night, guys. But I think sometimes people get too focused on trying to make it exactly like the example painting or exactly like the one I'm working on in the night. And it's like, yeah, it's good to kind of try to get close, but you don't need to be exact.
Yeah.
You know, I can't even paint my own paintings twice exactly the same.
It's true.
I would
Same,
not.
though.
I would not work well in one of those sweatshops that just recreates paintings
Over and over and over. I'm gonna add this. I'm gonna change this on this one.
And think about that. Like, those brush strokes actually have to be placed exactly the same spot every time.
Your tree and your original's a little bit bigger.
Yeah, I think that's.
Bigger and bolder.
Yeah, it's just taller.
Yeah.
But not by much. Like quarter inch.
It feels bigger.
It's only like a quarter inch taller, but it feels more vertical.
Yeah.
So, outside of that, let's see. We've got our paintings coming out next month.
Yeah, Lion and the Serengeti.
Mm-hmm. And then we also have. I know you guys probably get tired of this, but our website is changing again. Our subscription service, it will be the same. That's not changing, but it doesn't have a very good e-commerce platform for selling the individual kits.
It has a horrible e-commerce platform for selling like past projects.
Yeah.
Because if you guys have shopped for them, you'll notice there's no search feature. You have to literally scroll and you have to click load more, load more, load more, just to get down to like the T's for the old tires thing.
Yeah, it automatically sorts everything alphabetically.
It's a horrible platform for anything retail oriented. Great for subscriptions.
Great for subscriptions.
So our subscription will still be run through
we are actually going to have two websites that run in conjunction with each other and link back and forth.
Links.
One will be our regular, like, this is the Go Box, this is everything that goes on, this is where you order products, and then we'll have the subscription website where you go to...
Thank you, Donna.
Order the subscription and then also maintain your subscription. So the downside is you're not going to be able to order products with your subscription. So you'll just
order them separately and message us, and we'll put it all
ship
together.
them together. So.
All
Anything
right.
else? No.
No, I think we're good to go, and we will see you guys soon. I'm gonna work on some fall paintings.
Yep.
As that is rolling up here really fast. I think there's 73 days till Halloween. My son keeps us updated, so.
You skipped all of. Oh wait, we've already got September, so October.
Yep. So, all right, guys. Thank you again for joining.
Yep,
Check out gobox.com, and we'll see you next time.
See you guys.
Bye.
Bye. Is it ended? It's ended.